So now we're going to talk about the second era of the show, the Bush era, the righteous anger period of the show. And to me, watching clips from this era, I watched a lot of Daily Show to prepare for this episode, by the way. And Jon Stewart says of his show that his show is like egg salad. You can make the best egg salad in the world, and 2 weeks later, get that egg salad out of my face because it's news. And so I ate a lot of egg salad this week. But every time he talked about Bush, it was like hitting a baseball with the fat part of the bat. It was like good, clean contact. I laughed out loud almost every time I watched a clip about Bush. Bush is the ultimate muse for Jon Stewart.
Yeah, muse or white whale in that he's constantly chasing it but will never get him.
And this is really where the "are you seeing this shit" becomes most prominent, because every other news source is a cheerleader for the war in Iraq or for the Bush administration after 9/11. And Jon Stewart, he has a segment called Mesopotamia, which is about how the war on terror is going horribly. And he's doing that months after the war starts. He is extremely critical of the war in Iraq, basically from the very beginning, which is so rare in media at that time. And so he really was an important figure. And we have a couple clips of his incredulity at what the Bush administration was doing and how nobody else was covering it. So I'll play. This is July of 2003 and them realizing that there's no WMDs in Iraq.
How did the CIA get it so wrong? Committee Chairman, Republican Senator Pat Roberts.
The committee concluded that the intelligence community was suffering from what we call a collective group think, which led analysts and collectors and managers to presume that Iraq had active and growing WMD programs.
Really? Groupthink? Because I was thinking brain fart. You know, if only we'd had a Senate Intelligence Committee to look into that stuff before the war.
Just like, are you seeing this? The government is blaming a war on groupthink, on the fact that everybody was thinking the same thing. Like, that's not a justifiable answer for leading us to war.
For goofing up. We just did a goof, right? Like, the idea that this would be exculpatory, excusing for like, yeah, you fucked up. And again, fucked up is the best possible reading of what happened and not like you lied with malicious intent, which is what actually happened.
I have another clip here of him sort of ripping on them for using September 11th to justify anything they did.
I can't put my finger on it, but I feel like there was one more reason.
And remember, September 11th changed the equation. We've taken a number of steps since September 11th. America was attacked on September 11th. Sharing going on since September 11th, that taught us in a post-September 11th world.
Boy, they're hitting that drum. Because September 11th changed the equation. In fact, I have the new equation right here. September 11th plus X, where X signifies whatever we say equals shut the up.
I love that. I think it's really good.
We mentioned this on our Iraq War episode, but it's hard to emphasize how much people were getting canceled. Phil Donahue got his ass fucking shit canned for speaking out against this war. Jon Stewart can get away with it because he's not on a major network. He's on Comedy Central. And I know these bits that we play, they might seem very tame, right? Or they are very tame, right? Like, oh, you're talking about groupthink? What about brain fart? Cool, man. It's, again, a very George Carlin, like, stream of consciousness wordplay style bit or joke. It's hard to appreciate how much this was manna from heaven in the desert back in the 2000s. How much we needed this. Rage Against the Machine had their entire catalog banned from the radio after 9/11. The Dixie Chicks got their shit pulled. Phil Donahue's getting fired, right? There were so few voices. This is the OG cancel culture, is like 2000s War on Terror. But luckily we had this one guy to make these jokes, and it was something.
Yeah. And it was accessible because growing up in a small town in Florida, alternate media didn't really exist. It's something you had to either know about. My dad got Z Magazine and The Nation and Counterpunch delivered to him. So I had that part. You know, I'd rather watch TV than read The Nation, of course. But to have this access to a counter narrative was, like you said, absolutely manna from heaven. And the fact that it was fun too. It wasn't cloying or too self-serious. It made it cool. Like you were actually cool to participate in this.
Yeah, I'm reminded of, you frequently see on leftist pages, like, eventually you need to read theory. You can't just post memes or whatever. Fuck that. This is the meme form of not reading theory. Do I want to read Manufacturing Consent, or do I want to see Jon Stewart eviscerate the media?
Yeah, and have him say, you're not crazy. I'm seeing this too. When the Republican convention cuts to George Bush in a classroom, and he's not at the convention, you know, he's at a classroom in Ohio because he's focused on education. Forget the fact that it's 9 o'clock at night in August. He's saying, I am seeing this shit too, and you're not alone. This is fucking stupid. You're not taking crazy pills. I think it was very cathartic for people.
And if I could add, that clip's great because, yeah, they have this big reveal that Bush cares so much about education. He's in a classroom, and there are students in this classroom. It's not empty. So the joke is like he cares so much about education that he forced kids to stay in school until 9 p.m. in the summertime for his fucking little political blitz, for his little ad spot.
And we're going to have some complaints in the next era about his approach to the Obama administration, but I thought he was very good at ripping on Democrats too, like almost ripping on them existentially. And so I have a couple of clips here. This is a clip from the vice presidential debate between Edwards and Dick Cheney. And remember, Dick Cheney's daughter is gay, so Edwards is complimenting him on that.
I think the vice president and his wife love their daughter. I think they love her very much. And you can't have anything but respect for the fact that they're willing to talk about the fact that they have a gay daughter.
Yes, we admire your love for your gay daughter!
Just so good at pointing out that the Democrats are trying to have their cake and eat it too. Here's another clip of just straight up ripping on the Democrats and talking about how, like, I think this is like 2004. So at this point, they're opposed to the war. And he's like, it literally is not relevant that you're opposed to the war now when we needed you to be opposed to it was a year ago.
Yeah, the war has happened.
The war has happened.
Time is linear.
Like Jay Rockefeller of West Virginia.
The fact is that the administration at all levels, and to some extent us, use bad information to bolster its case for war. And we in Congress would not have authorized that war. We would not have authorized that war.
Democrats, always standing up for what they later realize they should have believed in.
Yeah, very good stuff. One more anti-Bush bit, and then we can move on here.
On the campaign trail yesterday, President Bush addressed the findings about the lack of findings.
I tell you what we do know. Saddam Hussein had the capacity to make weapons. See, he had the ability to make them. He had the intent. We knew he hated America.
Yes, intent to make weapons and hatred of America. And now that he's gone, there's no one else in the world who meets that criteria.
See what I mean? Like, this stuff was making me laugh out loud, which was pretty great. And I found that that's the biggest difference with the Obama era show, which we'll get to in a second, is I thought it was good, and I was watching it, and I was like, yes, very good. But there was no external laughter. The laughter was happening to me in my brain going, aha, very good.
Got his ass.
Yes.
Conservatives. He kind of became a debate bro of sorts. But in 2004, he went on Crossfire, which was a CNN political back and forth between a bow-tied Tucker Carlson and a skeleton Paul Begala. And Stewart went on there to, I guess be some third member of their spectrum somehow. And he was so good at pointing out their bullshit that he got the show canceled, or at least he's credited with getting the show just almost immediately taken off the air after his appearance. That's how good he was at saying, do you see this? Do you see what you're doing and how stupid this is? And I remember when I saw that, getting so much satisfaction. It was like my first taste of owning someone, was this instance. And of course, it ruined Tucker's career and he never made a comeback or anything like that. But I do think that this is where Stewart began to, I think, solidify himself as a really serious, good media figure. And The Daily Show would win 30 Emmys in a row every fucking year.
Yes, absolutely. And this gets into his ideology, which is he claims that the only thing holding America back is that we're not debating the issues good enough, right? Crossfire was a debate show, but he accuses those two guys of being, quote, partisan hacks. So they're not really debating. They're just hurling talking points at one another, and they're not doing it good enough. We're going to talk about this when we get to our themes, but this is classic Stewart ideology. The problem isn't the institutions. The institutions are fine. The problem is the people. And I'm exaggerating a little bit. He does talk about institutional failures at some points, but I don't think he believes in any kind of major structural reform. It's just we need better people in media. We need better people in politics, because at the end of the day, people are good, which is a very West Wingy style take.